Didn't you do something? Did you do something specific about street talk or no?
I almost forgot, but yeah, I did something specific.
So I need to stop this.
Nope, we're live now anyway, right? So let's go.
Yeah, we're out.
The weekly sermons of 45th Street Baptist Church are now available as a podcast through Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, or wherever you get your podcasts.
know how powerful this is? Do you know what it means in your life? Or maybe I should ask the question, does it mean anything in your life? Until you learn how to study it, see what God is saying to you, you'll never really be able to fulfill your purpose. Come on and join us. Join us for 45 minutes of purpose here at 45th Street Baptist Church. I guarantee you, you'll come out thinking differently. And my prayer is, somewhere along the line, you'll find the purpose that God has for you. Come on in and join us.
Welcome to 45 Minutes of Purpose, the Street Talk edition with Reverend Andra D.
Good evening, everybody. It's great to see you. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Well, we would normally be in this space for our Bible study, but every now and then we believe that there are other things that we should talk about as a church congregation and as a community. And so tonight we are back in our Street Talk edition, which simply means we've got a special guest with us. And we're going to be talking about some topics to help us celebrate Community Month. This is the month of October. 45th Street always turns to the community and starts to celebrate various things. This coming Sunday, October 6th, we're going to be concentrating on causes. We're going to celebrate all things healthcare, and that's physical and mental health awareness. And we're going to concentrate specifically on cancers and how to be aware of them and how to get the resources we need. Second Sunday, Sunday the 12th, we're going to be in a mode where we rep our church. You can either represent 45th Street or you can represent whatever other clique you have. And by clique, I mean, that's a term that we use today to represent your club or organization. Maybe it's a D9 organization or whatever it is. You can represent that when we come to the service, the worship service. And then on the third Sunday, Sunday, October 19th, we've got special guests. First Baptist Woodlawn is going to come join us. Reverend Perry Macon is going to be bringing the message that morning. They're going to join us for Family and Friends Day and our annual Harvest Festival. After the service, we'll be glad to have you join us for a fellowship meal. We always have it on the parking lot. It's always great fun with various food options. And we'll also be having trunk or treat in our Harvest Festival going on at the same time. And then on the fourth Sunday, that's the day after the classic, we'll be representing our college or career. Wherever you went to school, if you went to school or whatever your career is, we'll celebrate it that Sunday. So it's going to be a full month for us in the month of October. But tonight, we've got a special guest with us. I'm glad to say that he honored us with the request to be with us tonight. He's not a stranger to 45th Street, although we haven't seen him since the pandemic when he was gracious enough to join us. But during the pandemic, he was in a different role. He's in a much bigger role these days. It brings me joy to be able to introduce to all of us none other than Dr. David Hicks, who today serves as the health officer for Jefferson County. In fact, he's the first African American to serve in that role. And we just thank God for him being with us today. I don't know if you can clap where you are, but you ought to be raising the roof or shouting and thanking God for this brother being with us. Thank you for being with us, brother.
I'm excited to be on. I'm. It's always a pleasure with the honorable Pastor Sparks, the one and only.
We don't need to go through all that tonight. We're here to talk about you and all this wonderful knowledge you have. I need to give them a little bit of your background because it is absolutely amazing all that you've done. By training, he's a family practice doctor and a doctor of say it for me, osteopathic
You got
medicine.
You got it.
Yeah. And he has had extensive training in the School of Public Health and Behavioral Health Sciences at the University of Pittsburgh Graduate School. He's also worked at the National Institutes of Health. And he has been, tell me about the training you did over in Zimbabwe.
Yes, yeah. So I had time to during graduate school I was doing some diabetes, chronic disease research. We were also trying to understand the impact of HIV on people in over there. So it's pretty interesting work.
All of this laid the foundation for the position you hold now. How long have you been the health officer now? How many? Has it been 2 years yet?
You know what? It's actually 2 years today.
Look at that! Look at that celebration. You came and celebrated it today. We thank God for the selection. We knew you would be the one who would get it, and we're so glad that God has chosen you to lead the residents of Jefferson County. And by leading the residents of Jefferson County, the largest county, that means you're a state leader as well in all things healthcare. And so we're glad to have you here. Let's jump right in some conversations that are relevant right now. There's been nothing more top of mind in our country than talking about healthcare. We've been talking about the CDC and a lot of things nationally. Can you talk a little bit about how that may be affecting us, if it's affecting us in Jefferson County?
Yeah, so I think it was back in March where uh, local partners were getting some notices that their funding was being tied up at the federal level, and because of some of these pauses in funding, uh, some people weren't able to draw down money. You're talking about nonprofits in the area that need some money to do, really basics, essential services to link people to and filling in gaps in the community. So that was kind of the general. There was some of those things. Now, at our local health department, there was actually two grants that we lost funding for. Fortunately, we had the financial resources in house that we didn't just pivot it and use some of our resources. But certainly, other health departments around the country haven't really and had that luxury. Now, fast forward to now, it's interesting because this morning I got a email from the federal government, and I think everybody's aware of this shutdown that's upon us right now, and there was a standard kind of notification saying that due to some changes, they're not going to be receiving any additional funding requests, and telling us that there certainly could be delays in hearing back from staff members. Right, so right now we're kind of just going, day by day. We're still going to do all the work that we're doing, but the big concern for me is that typically, the way this works is money and resources come from the federal government to the states.
Right.
Then the states then give it to the local level, and then sometimes the funding comes straight from the federal government straight to the local. So we do have a grant that we're getting to do opioid overdose response work. And that's directly coming from the federal government to the Jefferson County Department of Health. And so, if we need some technical assistance, need some clarification on some things, if something's happening where we can't get the dollar resources reimbursed, the concern right now is if we picked up the phone or send an email, nobody may respond if they're not in the office.
Well, so you can help the congregation and those who are with us on these platforms understand a general overview of all the things that the health department does.
Oh, wow. All right. So I'm going to start off with environmental health because most people know about some of the things we do. So environmental health, this is a lot of our inspectors, restaurant inspections. A lot of people know that. Well, we're talking about brick and mortar restaurants, mobile food trucks. When we have big events that come into our community, like Magic City Classic and Fiesta, World Games, we have to give permits for people to operate to protect the food that people are consuming, right? But even beyond that, lodging, we inspect correctional facilities. So we're talking about jails. We do motels, hotels, communal living facilities. We're the only health department in the state that regulates communal living facilities. So, for example, think about this. Some people may be on a disability check.
Right.
And then some people board people and take advantage of them. They take their check because they don't have a place to stay or maybe a loved one. And we don't want those people to be packed up in a place that's unsanitary and being taken advantage of. So they have to come and get a permit from us to operate. We also do child care facilities, like daycares. We have inspectors looking at that. Public swimming pools, tanning salons, people that have x-ray equipment, tattoo parlors. I mean, you could name it. There's things that people don't even know that we touch. Any facility that has x-ray equipment. We don't want to have radiation exposure, right? We do air pollution regulation. So if a city zones a place industrial and then a business is emitting pollutants into the air, they then have to get a permit for us to inspect. And we, under the federal government, and we're the only health department in the state that does this, we regulate air pollution on behalf of the federal government here in Jefferson County.
So you're telling me that the feds depend on Jefferson County, not the state of Alabama, in this area to regulate that?
Absolutely.
How many employees does the department have?
We probably about 435 or such right now. It's funny because, I'm just listing a little bit of things that we do, but just now, when I tell people this, oftentimes they ask that same question. That must take a 1,000 or so people.
Right.
We have less than 500 people doing the work. So all day behind the scenes, we have people out, and that's the environmental work, right? There's so many other aspects of things we do. I've mentioned opioid overdose response. I talked about that grant. Gun violence. We can get into that in a little bit. So we do some work there. Things related to birth outcomes and infant mortality, and family planning clinics, and disease infection things. So we're touching just about every aspect of somebody's life.
I'm listening, and I'm thinking that there are a whole lot of areas I would have never considered that you had your hand in. Not that I got a whole lot of tattoos. In fact, I don't have any, but I wouldn't have thought about you having to regulate tattoo parlors. And you're telling me that every time I go to a food truck, I need to be looking for that inspection certificate.
100%. We give them the same level of scrutiny as a brick and mortar restaurant. So if you look for that score. Our inspectors will put that score up. And you can go online and see what our inspectors find. So if before you consume food, you can go online on your phone, type in the name, and look up that restaurant and see what our inspectors have identified.
And that's interesting because I remember the people used to get the newspaper when we had the physical newspaper and look for that column with the inspections in it. But that space is gone now without the physical newspaper. Do we have, you say we can go online and get the same information now?
Yes. So if you go to our website, jcdh.org, and then we make it, on our home screen, you can be able to click the link and it goes to all the restaurant scores. And as soon as the new scores come in, we keep that updated on a regular basis.
That's some good information for us to put out, because literally you're taking your life in your hand depending on which one of these food trucks you go to, because they may not be up to speed. That's real good information. So tell me, we're in this vaccination season, doctor, and some people might have some confusion based on what they've been seeing on national TV about vaccinations and talking about the Secretary of Health and Human Services talking about various things. Give us some guidance on that if you can.
Yeah. So vaccinations are one of the most powerful ways to prevent spread of certain we call them vaccine preventable diseases. And I think that quite frankly, some of us have short memory, because I think sometimes we've done such a great job of decreasing the amount of cases of certain conditions. The young people are not even aware of some of the things that maybe our parents, grandparents had to deal with. Now, I guarantee you that there's some listeners on the call that have relatives that they know about that have polio. But if you go back in the 1940s and 50s, you knew a neighbor, someone who had suffered from polio and was disabled from polio, right?
Right.
So we don't have to worry about that anymore because of a phenomenal vaccination program. So we take some of these things for granted, quite frankly. So right now, at this time of the year, all these, we call them respiratory viruses, are coming up, right? And there's some bacteria that come up. So it doesn't change. Getting an annual flu shot is what we recommend for everybody. Okay, if you're 6 months of age and older, flu shots, right? But then there's other things out there too, right? So now I think some of the debate has been about COVID-19. What do you do with that, right? So my answer is, talk to your healthcare provider about your risk. And we know that people that are older,
right,
are increased risk. We know that if you have chronic diseases, say you have diabetes and heart disease and kidney issues, you're at higher risk. So you need to have that conversation. The question is, where do you get a COVID shot from? Because if the federal government is changing some of the criteria, so it's gonna be tougher. Quite frankly, you're gonna have to call around, but talk to your healthcare provider. But if you fall within the category at least of a high risk group, you should be able to get a COVID-19 vaccine if you choose. And I think that's just a personal conversation to have with your healthcare provider. Before it was a lot more, we had a lot more aggressive language, quite frankly, in the past about people getting COVID shots because we were in the middle of a pandemic.
Right.
It's still important, but our how we talk about it is a little different because the threat is not as severe. But it's COVID. It can really cause problems, and people have long COVID and these symptoms that they're dealing with for years. So you need to have that conversation. Pneumonia, right? And if you're 50 years of age and older, you need to have a conversation about getting a pneumonia shot. So again, it's all about decreasing the risk of something serious happening to you. Seriousness, like having a complication, being hospitalized, God forbid, dying from.
Right.
That's why you get to make the choices.
Well, it's interesting because now the pneumonia shot we've had, my wife and I've had it, and I understand you only have to take that shot once. Is that correct?
Yes. So when you're a young a young child, there's a lot of shots that you get as a young person, a baby, and then when you're an infant, toddler.
Right.
Certain ones last you for years, but as an adult, you need to get kind of like another booster in your system, a one-time thing. So yes, as an older or middle-aged adult, say you're at 50 and above, that's when you need to have that conversation to get that. And once you get that caught up on that vaccine, then most people would only need just that one time.
It's interesting. I'm of an age that I remember a different environment when it came to vaccination. I vividly remember going to school and all the kids being lined up, and we sit down and we take vaccinations. We get shots at school every day. That was a very normal occurrence, which is why I think my generation was all right with being able to take vaccinations because we see the benefit. I also know that people had TB. That was a lot of problems in our community behind that. We don't hear about that anymore.
Well, hey,
as much.
And let me just tell you, there's active tuberculosis in Alabama and in Jefferson County. We have people that have active tuberculosis as we speak. People just don't hear about it, and we manage it. We have a tuberculosis clinic at the health department downtown Birmingham. And so,
wow.
So yes, tuberculosis is a whole lot less than it used to be, say 50, 60 years ago, but we still have tuberculosis in Jefferson County.
Well, people have some fears about getting some of these vaccinations. For example, the flu shot. The
Yes.
people will tell you that I won't get the flu shot because I get sick every time.
Well, interesting. I just got my flu shot 2 days ago. So,
yeah.
All right, let me talk about the flu shot. This is a myth I want to dispel. The flu shot, is impossible for the flu shot to give you the flu, the actual flu. It can't happen. Now, what can happen is you get the shot, and it's similar, quite frankly, to the COVID shot, right? When you get the shot, your immune system starts to get activated. It says something just got put in my body that wasn't there before. Your immune system goes into overdrive, and that when your immune system ramps up and kicks into overdrive with that shot, it can make you feel sick, right? So you can feel achy and sore. I might get upset stomach. I may get a headache. I may feel a little queasy. That can happen to some people, but that is actually it's not influenza virus doing that to you. That is the immune system's response to the vaccine. Now, so what I say to people is, if anybody has gotten the real flu, what you just went through with that shot pales into comparison to getting the real flu. Because when people have flu, you're talking about people down for a week and a half, 2 weeks, and you're in the bed and you're the most miserable feeling, right? So the question is, it's a risk thing. If I'm the kind of person who my body responds that way, if I feel not so great the next day, and then it kind of goes away, is it worth doing that versus taking the chance of getting the flu? You're out of work, you're feeling miserable. And then if you have a chronic condition, that could put you at risk of being hospitalized. And there are people that die of the flu every year too. So it's about risk, right? It's still your choice. But I would rather take my chances with the flu shot and maybe it make you feel a little icky for a day or so. But I don't want to get the flu, the full-blown flu. No.
Well, I'm glad you put it in those terms. That makes it so much better. And different people react in different ways. My wife and I have what we call a vaccination day every year. On Friday, we go and get our shots. And we did last Friday. We got the flu shot and the COVID shot at the same time in
Yeah.
different arms. Well, I tolerated it fairly well. I was a little achy and took a little Tylenol, and I was better. My wife, it knocked her out a little bit.
Yeah.
She was much more achy than I was, and in fact, put her in the bed for a day or so. But then she rebounded, and she's up and about now. Haven't had any further complications. So I hear what you're saying. Different people respond in different ways, but I'm concerned about the people who shy away from it completely. They won't get it at all. Um, you're telling me that that is just an unnatural fear, and what could happen to them is much worse than what happens with the shot itself.
Yeah, I'm thinking general. Yes, and generally in life, I think everyone can agree. One of the worst things you could do is have regrets in life. Like, I wish I would have made a different decision or choice. So I just
Right.
would people to make a regrettable choice, but it is their choice. I don't want people to feel bad for it, but just be informed and educated. Use your judgment. Use scientific judgment. Look at your sources of where you get your information from. Talk to your pharmacist. Talk to your healthcare provider, and then you make the decision that you think is in your best interest.
Um, I think this is wonderful information for us because I think people do get information from too many people who don't know what they're talking about. And you need to make sure you go to a credible source to get the information because those myths about how the vaccinations affect us are abundant in our community. And so, thank you so much for helping to clarify that, particularly in this season. Our church congregation has been affected by COVID through deaths. We've had deaths from COVID. I know that the flu has gone through, and people have been affected by that as well. And so, whatever we can do to protect ourselves, we certainly are going to do it. So thank you so much for that. Let's talk about some other issues that I think have become top of conversation the last few years. One being mental health. A lot of people talking about mental health. We've designated months at the church to just talking about mental health issues and had various professionals come in. Is the health department heavily involved in mental health counseling and
It's
treatment?
so we are not. And so, if people are familiar with our health department, many years ago, we used to run the Western Mental Health Clinic.
Right.
And we're going back, a couple, like maybe 2 decades or so ago, and then we kind of broke that off. So we don't do direct mental health, but we know that it is an issue. So when we do, we're actually currently wrapping up our community health assessment. So we survey the community every 5 years of what is the leading concerns. And mental health, we know that it's likely going to be the number one or number two issue besides public safety and gun violence, right? So mental health is everybody is battling with this, right? Now, and at least, even though we're not a mental health provider, we can elevate the conversations. And we work with the state health department this year to get a free resource to every Alabamian. So right now, any of the listeners can go on alabama.credibleminded.com. So alabama.credibleminded.com. Now,
All
with the
right. We're going to put it out. We'll put it out.
So this is a free behavioral health kind of mental health resource. So it's a self-help resource that you can get. So you can go on your phone, go on the website, and what'll happen is you can look up any topic, and it'll give you some things you can do on your own in the privacy of your own home. And because we find out about 70% of people want to do things on their own first, right? So if you go on that site, imagine if you're a parent and you have a child that's getting bullied at school. It can give you some things about how to handle that situation, right?
Okay.
What happens if you're suffering from anxiety? What if it's grief? You just lost a loved one. So, and it could span things like self-help. It could be yoga. It could be meditations. It could be um, exercise. So it gives you things that are proven to help people, right? And it can be in the form of like a mini video that you can watch, read a mini article. There are some apps that'll link you to that you can download on a smartphone. So again, this is at no cost. Now, the great thing also is if you want to take it to the next level and do like get a screening questionnaire, you can do a screening questionnaire and then they can tell you, hey, you may be dealing with stress. And then the question is, then what do I do next, right? So then there's on that site, there's some mental health providers in the state, resources that it could be counseling, it could be psychiatrists. And so you can kind of link to get some things, what's in my local community that I can get connected to. So that's an avenue, a tool, a resource that people can use for mental health. So, and as as a pastor, as in our being, we have body is what doctors talk about a lot, right? It's
That's right. That's right.
You got the soul, and the mind and the spirit, right?
Come on, bro.
And so we can focus on the body only, and that means we may not be whole completely.
Right.
And part of what you do is make sure spiritually we are where we need to be, and that's a very important component. All right, but you also got to make sure that your mental space is also protected as well, and you got to treat all of these as important. You can't neglect any parts of your being.
That's right. We certainly follow that theological vein at 45th Street. We preach to the whole person. Every aspect of the person has to be as healthy as it can be, and so we concentrate on not just the spiritual issues, but physical, mentally, emotionally. We need all of that to be taken care of. But we have some again bad information that floats around in our community sometime when people think that because you're experiencing issues with strained mental health, we'll say it that way, that you're weak or that you're broken. And the truth of the matter is sometimes you just need someone to help you put into context what you're going through and help you walk through it. And so these resources you've given us, we're going to put them on all our platforms so everybody can pull them up as they need to. But tell us again, you don't do it at the health department, but you make sure the resources are available.
Yes, that is correct. I mean, there are mental health partners. So locally there's JBS Mental Health Authority. Our community health centers have mental health programs. Cooper Green has, if you're a patient there. We need more mental health resources, absolutely. But everybody does not need to see a psychiatrist, and everybody does not need to see a therapist, and everybody doesn't need a medicine. Right. So you got to figure out what's right for you, but you got to have the conversation, and you have to think of. We all need to think of this as, for example, if I had high blood pressure, if I knew I was struggling with blood pressure issues or I had a headache, would I say, no, I'm not going to deal with that, right? So we don't have a problem going to get help to get our blood pressure down, and we don't have a problem. It's not so much of an issue with if this headache is really driving me crazy, I got to go see somebody and take care of this, right?
Right.
So we got to think of this. If you're suffering you're stressed out, you're feeling down, you're anxious about something, then treat it the same way. There's something wrong. This is why we have professionals out there. You go to your pastor, have a conversation. So it's not a sign of weakness. To me, it's a sign of strength that you recognize there's something not where it needs to be. And then I'm going to try to do something about it, figure it out and do something about it.
Well, I also think that it's incumbent that people utilize the resources that are appropriate for the situation. If you cut your hand, you're going to get something to make sure it gets stopped from bleeding. And if it's too deep, you're going to go see a professional about it. And the same thing is true. You won't take a bleeding hand to your pastor and ask your pastor to pray over that only. There's got to be some other kind of intervention in it that's appropriate for that situation. And the same thing is true for us mentally. Pastors can pray for us and pray with us, but we need to go see professionals if your pastor isn't trained in that. Then then your leader needs to be aware and be honest and say, this is beyond my ability to deal with this, and you need to go see somebody who's qualified for it. And that's important. Prayer can help us with anything because we invoke the Lord in our situation. But that's why God gives us trained folks like Dr. Hicks in order to lead us, and that's why he gives us so many people in our community to help us. So thank you for that guidance, brother. um, you're the authority on this, and so we're going to follow your advice on this. We got a problem that's happening in our community right now. I know you've had to be involved in it. So I'm not going to say it's just young folks, but they are being inordinately affected by it, and that is gun violence. Gun violence is affecting us everywhere. I know you've been involved in it lately. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Oh yeah, it's a complicated situation. I'll tell you specifically what our health department has done. Now, this is just one piece of the puzzle, right? There's a certain component of people that are caught up in the cycle of gun violence where there's retaliation that happens, right? And then know each other, and then you just keep on having this cycle. Someone knows somebody, and then they're taking this action. So we partner with the city of Birmingham and UAB Trauma Service on a program where what happens is, say there's a gunshot victim comes to the hospital, they get in surgery because they got a significant injury. Now you got patched up, you got the surgery.
Right.
We don't want you to leave that hospital and try to retaliate against who shot you, nor do we want someone to try to finish you off when you get out, because you survived, right?
Okay. Okay.
So we work with the Offender Alumni Association. These are credible messengers. These are people that have been criminal justice system involved themselves. They've turned their life around, and they
lived experience. Yeah,
they go to your bedside and saying, "We have a program that we can help. So when you get out of here, you're putting yourself in the best position to survive and thrive in life, right?" And if they that program, we're talking about, it may be, when you get out of here, do you have a safe place to stay? Maybe you need to get out of your community temporarily. Maybe we need to talk to you about what are you doing with your children and parenting. Maybe we need to figure out how you can get some gainful employment. And so they try to meet people where they are so they're not caught up in a cycle of retaliation. So we have about a 98% success rate of people in the program that are not caught up in retaliatory violence. But that's a downstream approach. The city of Birmingham's expanded that concept to some degree in the emergency department. So that's the thing, but we really need to get really upstream. That's the preventive, where young people, when you're talking about, can we intervene in a 7-year-old, an 8-year-old about how do you cope in stressful conflict, handle conflict?
Right.
How do parents then talk to their young people about stuff, so settling differences in a certain way. So there's community violence and approaches, and it's a continuum. So I guess the last thing I'll just say about this is I had the opportunity to participate in the City of Birmingham Crime Commission, and some of the recommendations, and we looked at how other cities that were successful reducing gun violence did it. And it's a multi-pronged approach, but there's some immediate action that you take to kind of stop the bleeding, no pun intended, to try to decrease the violence rate. But you got to have some long-term investment in community programming, for resolution involving the community. So there's multiple strategies, but it's not a one and done. And you really have to have more long-term investment. And you have to think, and it's a whole bunch of things. Mental health is tied up into that. Childhood traumas are tied up into that. Is there access to gainful employment?
That's right.
Opportunities for people. So that's all mixed together. So it takes a village to really help correct this, and multiple partners, nonprofits and things have to be a part of it. So we're doing the small piece of it, but it's a complex issue. But there's a lot of great work out there right now.
Well, and it's important that churches talk about these issues and point their parishioners and members to those resources that are available. I'm involved through my secular work at the court, and another component of this prevention through conflict resolution in the school system. We're teaching kids every day how to resolve conflicts from elementary through high school. We're teaching them how to deal with issues without resorting to violence. So you're right. It takes a village. It takes every component. Want to make sure that 45th Street is involved in it as well, because there's nothing that says we can't be touched or won't be touched by these issues as they come along. So we got to make sure our members know that these resources are available. And I want to thank you for your leadership in that space, because I realize that not every public health department has the same issues that they have to deal with. This urban gun violence is something that's unique to a health department that has a big city like Birmingham in it. And so you got to be on the front line of it, whether you want to or not. You're going to be affected by it. So thank you for doing that. If you got some information that you want to share with our members before we close this out, brother, go ahead and tell us so we can make sure we are following your doctor's advice.
Well, there's a lot of noise out there. Who do you believe? Who do you trust? A lot of stress is out there, a lot of uncertainty in the world. And so I would, to me, it's we need to be focused. We got to take care of our personal health, think about our family's health and the community's health, and make the decisions to set up future generations for success. So in all the things that we do and decisions that we make as individuals, it's also in the context of community. And then our young people are mimicking the behaviors that they see from us, our generation as adults, right? So what do we eat? Our physical activity or inactivity? How do we cope with issues? How do we have conversation, healthy conversation and debate in society? And so we can create the environment we want, but it takes a lot of work and energy, right? We have a lot of challenges, and the way we're going to get through this is together. And if we all have the right, we're rallying around a common vision and purpose, and we're figuring out ways to work together and not against, not competing with each other,
right?
Then we can really move the needle and make some really significant changes in society. So there's a role that government has to play. I'm in a government organization. There's individual responsibility, community responsibility, but we got to put it all together.
Yeah, it takes everybody working together. There's one other area that I think has been relevant lately. I want to ask you about before we get off. I've heard a lot about it. I know some people who are struggling with it, and that's the HPV shot. I think
Yeah.
there's some confusion in our community. People think it's just for kids. Can you talk a little bit about the HPV?
Yeah. So HPV stands for human papillomavirus. That is a virus that can cause warts, particularly in the genital area, but also cervical cancer. Okay. So cervical cancer is going to be something that women are impacted by, right?
Right.
And so the vaccine can be started as early as age 9, but now we can give it up through, age 40s. Okay. And so I think that it's been, when it came out, I think the issue, I'm quite frank with you, is that HPV virus, for most of the time, it gets spread from one person to the next through sexual intercourse.
Okay.
All right. So a parent likely could say, why in the world would I give my 9-year-old a vaccine, because they shouldn't be doing that, and I know they're not doing that type of behavior?
Sure.
Okay. So what I would say is, it's not to say that we think or anyone thinks your child is doing that type of behavior right now at all. You take the vaccine, it's a preventive thing. So it's in your system. At some point, there's very likely there's going to be some type of interaction at some point in their life.
Right.
Right. And imagine if the male has that virus in their system, and then they pass it on to their partner. Their partner then gets cervical cancer. Right. So maybe right. or I don't want to get a wart myself.
Sure.
Right. So I think that it's about protecting you and potentially protecting somebody else, but you take it as early as possible so you have a protection. And so that's what I always say. But since that vaccine has come out, the rates of cervical cancer in the United States have dramatically dropped.
Oh yeah. So it's
And
something we need to be talking about a lot more than we have been. And the person who I know who is struggling with HPV related cancer is a man now.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, he's so I don't.
it's
I
not.
wanted to mention that because I think we put too much information out that's just wrong. It's just wrong. It's not just for little girls, not just for young people. This is a middle-aged man who is
Oh
dealing
yeah.
with this issue, and it's a tough situation for him. So, thank you for clarifying that. We're going to make sure we spend more time putting all these issues before our church congregation. Um, and I want to thank you for your leadership in this space. What can we pray for you for, brother? Tell me what we need to pray about for you.
Well, yeah, no, for me, it's about um, God give me the wisdom and discernment to serve the people as best as possible.
Okay. All right. And I ask you that because I know you're a man of faith. I know you're a husband. How many babies you got?
Three.
Three babies. Three babies. And so we're gonna continue to lift you and your wife up, and your babies up, and we're gonna ask the Lord to bless everything you do so that it can benefit the community and that you can be benefited as well, brother, and that He keep you strong and healthy and put you in the right places and in the right faces for the decisions to be made, and that every resource that we need here in this county is made available, not respecting anything they do at the national level, that everything we need is made available, and that you continue to thrive in this role. We're proud of you. We're proud of you. I want to say that as a community. We still are in Birmingham, Alabama, and we haven't moved so far down the road that we can't acknowledge the historic seat you sit in right now. And so God bless you and God keep you is our prayer. And thank you so much for joining us tonight, Doctor.
Oh, it's been a pleasure. Anytime. I'll come back whenever you let me come back.
All right. Thank you so much. Take care. We'll see you.
All right. Thanks.
All right. Good night.